So basically, for a very long time I grew up watching the entire Pokemon franchise, so I decided to take different type of Pokemon and fuse them together to create entirely new characters in my style, and this is what I came up with. As I ended up creating these characters, I first ended up drawing them on a piece of paper to get the rough idea of what I wanted. Then after I ended up getting the entire idea of what I want the character to look like, I started digitizing it by, drawing on the drawing tablet, so I could apply way more detail and kind of flesh out the character way more with nice detail and coloring. And as I ended up doing this drawing, I ended up using newer techniques to make my art look better and to make the entire process a bit more fun, because I ended up doing blended shading in, but I decided to stick with the type of shading in technique I used quite a long time ago, and basically it's just flat colors as a shading technique. You use purples, blues, those types of normal colors, and then you just lower them down to about 50%, you lower down the opacity, and then you have what you are looking for. But first I ended up coloring each of the segments I need to color in, and I ended up using bright colors because I really wanted the character to stand out quite well, and I ended up using purple as an accent color towards the red. To be honest, when it comes to Pokemon, most of them have names that identify what the character is and what its name is, because of course all animals in real life have names to define what they are, and so we can easily communicate to each other what the name of the creature is. But to be honest, I do not know what to name this Pokemon. If you have an idea, you can put in the comment section, comment the name of what you want the Pokemon to be named, but to be honest, I do not have any clue on what I'm going to name this guy. But as you can see, as I'm shading in, I have about 3 layers, and all I'm doing is I'm going to be building up the shading in to kind of look like it's being blended, but not really. You can still see its flat colors, but has the illusion of it being blended in. And to be honest, I quite like this aesthetic. And when it comes to the fur texture, I'm adding little lines and dashes, and it does actually look pretty nice to identify the fur and really show the texture. And the thing is, I really have to play around with how I draw fur, because I've seen many other artists' techniques on how to draw fur, and I want to kind of learn how to, do it. The skull of the Pokemon, you can see, is now round, and if you looked from the beginning as I was sketching it out, the character's skull had an extremely sharp point, but to be honest, I didn't like how it looked. So to fix it, I ended up just smoothing it out when I wasn't recording, so I can make it look neat, because it was just bugging me. So I just fixed it, and it looks way more better now, and I'm glad on how it looks like. And with the fur texture on the rest of its body, you can see there are fluffy spots on its body. Where the red color is where the fluffy fur is, and where the purple color is where the matte kind of fur is. It's kind of like short fur, not really too furry, but you can still see it. It's like nice and flat on the body, and I ended up giving it a fur type of look, but didn't really try to go too extreme, because of course it's matte and flat, and I ended up using the color orange to kind of have this nice glow effect on the edge. And right at the end, what I want to do is I want to add some rim lighting using a certain color, because it does actually look really good adding a rim line to the drawing, and really kind of ties it all together. And the reason I chose blue rim lighting is because it really clashes with the color red, and it's quite the opposite color, and I added that to kind of have a nice effect, to kind of bring the entire piece together. And at the end, I think it came together very well, and now I'm adding the signature to finish off the piece. As I sketch out this character, I've had a little bit of a realization. The character's face structure is quite similar to the first one I drew, but as I am thinking about it, I end up repeating the pattern right at the end, but there's still a lot of differences between both characters to make them separate and not really the same type of Pokemon. But as I end up thinking about this character, I end up coming with a realization. How do Pokemon robots work? Of course, they have mechanical insides that allow them to function normally, and they may or may not be powered by electricity, but I'm thinking, who invented them and where did they come from? Because you can usually find big supplies of Pokemon robots just wandering in the wild, doing what they usually do, but are they sentient or are they just artificial? Those are the questions that linger in my head sometimes, and as I think about it more and more, I have more questions than I do have answers. But now we are moving on to the inking phase. As I ink this piece, I kind of have the satisfaction of really building the character up and kind of using the tools I have to slowly start building up the character and slowly start moving towards a completed piece. But as I end up drawing in the large areas like the arm, the chest, I end up needing to zoom out, and because I have a little bit of a small drawing tablet, it's quite difficult kind of leaning your head more forward and kind of staring straight at the screen, kind of trying to, draw in large strokes. That's why I spend most of my time zoomed into my piece because of the size of my drawing tablet. But to be honest, I've been using this drawing tablet for years and years, and I may be using it for many years to come, and I do enjoy using it because it was the first ever drawing tablet I have, and the only one I've used, but it's still a really good device I've been using for quite a long time. But now I move on to the coloring phase, and as I end up coloring in this character, I end up using kind of a washed out white, because when you look at older electronics, you can see that the UV light has really discolored the white and really made it more of a fleshy toned and really made the plastic old and withered, and I wanted to do the same thing with this character. But to be honest, I think the character's more made out of porcelain than made out of plastic, because I think when the character was created, plastic wasn't a thing yet. To be honest, while shading in this character, I've put a lot of detail into the shading in, and when it came to certain areas like the blue, I kind of used the color purple. If you ask me, I should have used a different dark color, or maybe lower down the darkness of the purple a bit more, because it was quite hard to kind of see the purple on the blue areas, and it was quite hard shading in right by the blue segments, like where it connects the arm, the torso, and the other limbs. It was quite hard seeing that color, and also the same with the yellow. As I was using the yellow on the white areas, I had a hard time layering it up and seeing where my brush strokes were happening and where the colors were touching, but I ended up figuring out as I was doing the piece. I'm almost nearing the end of this piece, and now all I need to do is do the finishing touch-ups and add the shading into the areas I need to add. And also, with the lightly colored in areas, I'm going to be adding a little bit of white lighting, kind of bouncing off the character, showing that he's made out of a mix of metal and porcelain, because I want to kind of give that appearance. But to be honest, I do not really know how to draw porcelain, and the only way I'm able to convey that the character's made of porcelain is by the cracks and wear and tear in the character. Now I'm moving on to the next drawing, and finally I'm working on a four-legged creature, meaning I'm able to play around with the anatomy a bit more and have a little bit more of a dynamic pose. I want the character jumping downwards to kind of land on the ground, so I ended up extending the character's leg, making it seem like the front legs are going to absorb most of the impact. But I ended up enjoying how I drew the pose, and I think this character fusion is actually quite an interesting one. As I ended up sketching out the piece, I ended up fleshing out all the detail and getting the rough idea of what I wanted to look like, giving it nails, and after I finished sketching it out, I moved on to the detail. And to show that it has a burlap sack attached to the character, kind of wearing a burlap type of outfit, I ended up adding some cross-hatching to kind of show that it's made out of burlap, because if you look at burlap, it has quite thick strands of rope to kind of show some of its texture, because when you look at a burlap sack, many people use it to store potatoes in it, and you can see all the rope and how thick it is, so I wanted to go for that effect, showing how thick the rope is and kind of adding a little bit of texture. Then I started adding some gradients so I can have a nice tone to the piece. Then I ended up just taking a little bit of a brush and kind of add a little bit more texture to it to kind of flesh it out a little bit more. Realistically, with this Pokemon, not the entire Pokemon is colored blue, but I decided to go for it because it's Pokemon Fusion, and I wanted to go for a color scheme that really complemented the character quite nicely. And the burlap sack I wanted to have the character wearing because Mimikyu actually does wear a burlap sack. It's not the Pokemon, it's just the type of clothing item that the Pokemon decides to wear, and I want to go for that same effect. I do not know if this character has the exact same curse as Mimikyu, or if the character is just wearing the burlap sack as like cosplay or just to be comfortable. To be honest, I haven't really fleshed out the lore, so if you want to flesh out the lore and kind of create your own story for this character, you can if you want to. But now moving on to the shading in, and to be honest, I ended up using the color purple, and also I ended up using yellow again for the shading. And the lighter areas I used yellow, and for the darker areas I used purple, and it really complements the blue so nicely, and it really flows with the blue very nicely, and everything is actually coexisting very well together. The colors aren't too dark, the colors aren't too light, so I'm able to really flesh out the shading in and really make the piece coexist with each other. And you can see from a large part of these drawings I've been doing, I've been having a palette. Well, basically when you do digital art, you have this like little palette that you fill with all your shading in colors, and I decided to finally do that because back then I would just up the opacity, then I would use the eyedropper tool, but it would be kind of a pain doing that, so I just ended up having a palette so I have all the colors I need. In the meantime, I can take the eyedropper tool, select the color I need, then I'm able to go through that instead of needing to, blow down the opacity and do that entire thing. But anyway, I ended up using the color red as an accent color on the side because it thought that it would really coexist with the piece nicely, and you can see I've added a little bit of a neat touch where the rim lighting is the color of the background. Hey guys, I just want to say thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.